now. Hey everyone, welcome to the match preview for Arsenal versus Liverpool. I have two awesome guests with me today. They have their own podcast called Hardcore Football. And, in the world of football and, Twitter, you kind of look at everybody's bios to see what they're kind of about. And when I saw their bio for Hardcore Football, I was like, I need to know these people. Who are they? And the intense look at the world's game by two passionate Americans really spoke to me. And, they're here with me today. It's Phil and Mika from Hardcore Football. You guys, thank you for being here. How are you guys this afternoon slash night slash whatever it is? Because we're all in different time zones.
We're great. Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, I wanna echo that.
yeah. So one of you guys is obviously a Liverpool fan, and then the cooler of you guys is an Arsenal fan. We know that for now, but let's just kind of talk about, for an American fan like me, it's really important for me to kind of know how this all comes about. We all start to watch football for different reasons, and it's just so interesting to hear. So, Phil, let everybody know just kind of how you became a Liverpool fan, how you started watching after they won the Champions League, because you want to get with the best team, all that kind of stuff. Just a couple years ago, probably 3 years ago, you started watching them, right?
Yeah, it does seem like Liverpool fandom obviously has gone through some changes recently, but yeah, my story, unfortunately, I'll show my age a little bit here, and yeah, my story starts back in 2005. Friend of mine, I didn't follow the sport. Friend of mine invited me over to watch the Champions League final. Didn't really have any context. Didn't know even about things that would have been quite obvious to other people, like this AC Milan team is one of the greatest ever assembled. This Liverpool team is quite average. Like some of the context around the game. But yeah, it was the Istanbul final, and what I witnessed was like the most amazing thing I'd ever seen in sports. That comeback and the emotion attached to it, and the energy in the Ataturk, like in Istanbul, just was like nothing I'd ever seen. So yeah, it was love at first sight. From there, it's been a little bit more of a roller coaster of Liverpool fandom. We have the Hodgson years in there. It's been up and down. Luckily, a little more up recently, but now we're experiencing maybe a little bit of a downslope. So it's been an amazing ride, and I've just grown to learn and meet so many great people through the club too. And it's just it's been an amazing avenue into kind of the wider world of football that has led to meeting fans of other clubs too, and who are also passionate about the game. So it's been great, but yeah, not without its challenges, I guess, especially recently.
Yeah, that's the thing about football is kind of like you have to go with the ups and downs of your team. You don't really get to check out. I've checked out on the Lakers so many different times, but I've never checked out on Arsenal, and I think they've been bad for a while, But have you ever had a chance to get to Anfield or see a Liverpool game live?
I have, and the timing was really lucky, because it was I went to Liverpool versus Wolves December 29th of 2019. So like right before 2020 hit, and right before fans, unfortunately, like weren't allowed in games. So I feel very fortunate that that trip happened at the time that it did. Um, Absolutely incredible. They had just recently returned from the Club World Cup as well, so there was just like an amazing energy with the fans. And even though it was just a 1-0 win, I was able to witness a win and celebrate a goal as well at Anfield, and just an amazing atmosphere. Some of the best people that you'll meet, super super accommodating and welcoming even to an American fan. So um, yeah, it was just an amazing experience, and something I'll cherish for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I was also in the UK right before everything with COVID hit. I just watched Arsenal versus Newcastle, and we won that game. I'm so happy we won that game. It was like 4-0. And it was, I remember right before the game being like in a pub, and they were showing some Americans that had gotten stuck on a cruise in Japan or something like that, and they started to talk about COVID, and I was thinking to myself, like, this is going to be crazy. Little did I know it was going to be as crazy as it's been. And I mean, to think that I was that close to it, I mean, I'm pretty sure people around me probably maybe had the virus, or whatever, but I'm very thankful that I got an opportunity to go before everything shut down. Mika, have
Yeah.
you had an opportunity to go to the Emirates in?
You know what? I was supposed to go 2 falls ago, and of course that did not happen. And obviously haven't been able to reschedule yet given the pandemic. So no, not yet, but hopefully soon. I mean, it's just crazy hearing. I mean, obviously we know, Phil, that you had gone to Anfield just right before all of that, and to
Yeah.
hear that you'd been there too as well. My goodness, talk about close calls, you guys. But I'm glad you were able to see the teams before everything hit. Nah, hopefully. I mean, I've been hearing that they're gonna allow fans maybe like for the last game of the season or something like that. So hopefully that signals a return to normal, and maybe they'll allow Americans into other countries. We'll see.
Hopefully. So Mika, tell everybody your origin story about Arsenal, and I'm really interested to hear how you thought of the name Jacques Apologist.
Oh man, I'll talk Arsenal first, and then I'll get into shock apologist. But my origin story is not as cool as Phil's, I have to say. I mean, when I started watching soccer, I was more interested, I guess, in La Liga at the time. That was when Pep Guardiola's unstoppable Barcelona side were in their heyday, and that was kind of what I paid attention to more. But as the Premier League started to become more accessible to those of us here in the States, I started to pay a bit more attention. I had a friend who was an Arsenal fan, and he said, that's the club you need to be supporting. And I said, I'll make my own decision. We'll see. And the first ever Premier League game I ever watched in full was an Arsenal match. So it felt natural. I mean, just the way they played, learning about Arsene Wenger and his longevity at the club is something that you don't hear about in sport in general. At that point, he'd been at the club over a decade and a half at that point. So all of that drew me in. The fact that it's a big club in London, and just all the history, it was natural. And yeah, I've been suffering since. But shock apologist. It's. I mean, obviously, it's tongue in cheek. Granit Xhaka, he certainly divides opinion. Personally, I like him a lot. He's not without his flaws, that's for sure. He's a very divisive player. Of course, he's had his fallouts with the fans. He's done plenty of stupid things on the pitch, and so in our local Arsenal America chapter, Border Cannons, they always take the piss out of me for liking him. So I said, I'm a Shaka apologist, and it just came to me like, that's it. That's my Twitter handle. I just think I think it's funny. It's good fun. But yeah, Granit Xhaka, he's been better this season though, to be fair. So yeah, just a little bit of fun.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've changed a lot of my I've been very anti Xhaka for a very long time, but this season I've taken a lot of time to look at the statistics and numbers behind Xhaka's play, and try to really understand why Arteta plays him more than other players and why he trusts him. So, I have sympathy for Granit. I think he's kind of like Bellerin. He's an easy punching bag for Arsenal fans. We like to find the villain, and just keep battering that person. And some of the things that he's been through are just disgusting. Like, I don't really understand, the online abuse, and obviously with, not to speculate, but what's happened from with Claude, and the online abuse that he suffered. And, I just want to send my condolences and my prayers out to him and his family, and,
Absolutely.
all that, because that's terrible. And just the online abuse thing has got to change. And I think hopefully the football Twitter world can get a clue, because this stuff is got to stop. But I think it's so interesting that you say that you started out watching Pep's, Barcelona, and Arsene was really inspired by that team when he went through the rebuild for Arsenal in 2006 to 2010. He started buying players or bringing in players to Arsenal that could play that tiki-taka style, that real fluid offensive style that's really easy on the eye. The only issue is that we left the back door open a lot of times, so we didn't have the solidity. But I can see why you started out watching Arsenal and you gravitated towards it, especially in that time. So
can I real quick talk about, from an outside perspective, Arsene Wenger? So as someone who started watching obviously in the middle of Arsene Wenger's reign, he had been, there for a long time, and he would still be, at Arsenal for a long, long time by the time I started watching. His longevity, I thought that there was some connection when I first started watching between Arsene, his name, and Arsenal. Like, I thought there was some preordained, he was supposed to be the coach, or he was named after the team or something.
A lot of people thought that.
What do we call that? Nominative determinism?
Yeah, Arsene Wenger was destined from birth to become Arsenal manager. It was always written in the stars. So I've always appreciated, and even during the whole Arsene out and all that stuff, Wenger out, and it was a big campaign, almost like a meme, I guess. During that, I was like, you're never going to have this chance again. No one named after the team. I know he's not named after the team, but no one named similarly to the team is ever going to come through the ranks again. But no, right. I mean, obviously amazing manager and what a tenure, but I had that thought at the beginning that he had some sort of cosmic connection.
Yeah. Have the Unai Emirates.
No,
that didn't work out quite as well.
No.
But... yeah, Arsene's one of those. Well, he's obviously such an iconic figure, and when you think Arsenal, you think Arsene Wenger, and I think it's going to take a long time for that to kind of dissipate over time. I think there's just a lot of fans that just feel like the two are to be together forever. So, and a lot of Arsenal fans feel the same way as you feel. They thought that as well, so it's not just an outside perspective. A lot of Arsenal fans thought that too, but let's expand on this a little bit. So Phil, I love to get non-Arsenal fans' opinions of Arsenal and Arteta, specifically. So from an outsider's perspective, I know you may not have watched a lot of Arsenal's football, but even just playing us and just from kind of the little bits that you may or may not have seen, what are your thoughts on Arteta and his tenure so far at Arsenal?
Yeah, I think he's an interesting figure in that we've seen this trend of that generation of players moving into management, and it's become a lot more frequent, I think, recently. Players of his era, moving into those management roles, whether it's Henry trying his trade abroad, Steven Gerrard, obviously, at Rangers, Pirlo as well. So there's a lot of players, even Gattuso, if we want to dive in at Napoli, but yeah, that generation of players is really moving into those management roles now, and Arteta he built so much goodwill early on, and I think it's done him a lot of good in terms of allowing him and giving himself the space. Winning that FA Cup is giving him the space to try to work through the issues that this Arsenal team has, and I don't think it's unfair to say that this Arsenal team has issues, and I'm not throwing shade or anything, because Liverpool has its own. But I think he has the time to work through it, and he clearly has he's grown under the tutelage of Pep Guardiola. He's learned from that. I think he's struggled maybe at times to manage the personalities on this Arsenal squad. because there are a lot of strong figures in that dressing room right now and a lot of experienced players. I think his gravitation towards the youth kind of shows that, where he's like, you know what, I'm done dealing with some of you. Like, I'm gonna move on, and we've got some talented youngsters coming through. So I think his understanding of Arsenal and the fan base and everything. I think there was a moment where he was really close to losing it. Like, he was really close to fully losing the fan base and losing the owner's box as well, I guess, by extension. But he held it together just enough, got the form going just enough to where I think my thought of Arteta is he deserves some time to work through it at Arsenal. You just came out of the tenure of a very experienced manager just a couple of years ago, which, anytime that a long tenured manager leaves a position, you're going to go through some growing pains, some rough patches. So I think Arteta's earned a little bit of goodwill, a little bit of good faith. And I'll be interested to see, as he gets to put his stamp more on the squad with some more inbound transfers and that sort of stuff. I think it'll be really interesting to see what direction it goes. But the expectations are going to remain really high. And I think, Champions League qualification is going to end up being kind of a make or break for Arteta in the not so distant future. So, he's shown a lot of different sides to what and different approaches, different tactics, even definitely different personnel. But yeah, he's earned the chance to try to work it out, and hopefully Arsenal give him that chance to see what this Arsenal side can do. Because honestly, I think it's more fun when Arsenal are a side playing good football in the league. I think it's good for everybody.
Yeah, it'd be good for us as well. We would love to see some good football. But to be fair, we have seen some good football in the last, basically since Boxing Day. To me, prior to Boxing Day, the football was dire. It was horrific. It was very hard to watch. Now, at least we know what direction we're going in. And I think Arteta bought a lot of, he has a lot of credit in the bank because of the FA Cup. That bought him some time. Not having fans in the stands has helped him. And Emile Smith Rowe has helped him as well. If he did not integrate a 10, you see our form prior to having a 10, we're 10th, 12th place, and some of our underlying metrics are closer to 15th through 17th in the league, versus now where our underlying metrics and our form is around 6th, in the upper of the league. So those things have saved him, but I'm happy that they have, because I think the Arsenal way is not the Chelsea way. I know that they fired Frank Lampard, and Chelsea is pretty cutthroat. They're like, fail fast, get him out of here. But the Arsenal way is not really that way. We like to stick with managers for a longer period of time. You saw that with Arsene, and I think Unai was just a bad choice, and I don't think Arteta will be here for 20 years, but I do think that they'll ride the project out long enough to make sure that it actually didn't work, because he's trying to do the right things. Mika, I want to bring you in here to just talk about Arteta and what you've kind of thought about his tenure so far, and were you ever Arteta out at a certain point, or you have always kind of backed him?
You know what? Prior to Boxing Day, I was furious with Arteta. I think if you listen to some of the older hardcore football episodes, I probably did say in there, if he doesn't turn this around, he needs to get the sack, because this is relegation form. Obviously, at the end of the day, when I take off my analysis hat, I am just a fan. And it was hard to watch. It was really hard to watch Arsenal in that period, just because we weren't offering anything. It was horrible, not playing with a 10, as you said. So was I ever seriously Arteta out? No, I think I was just really upset in the meantime. But overall, I think he's done really well, given the circumstances. To manage a huge club like this as your first job, and during a pandemic, and just all these different challenges, getting COVID yourself, I mean, lest we forget, I don't think the league would have shut down if Mikel Arteta didn't test positive for COVID-19 all those months ago. So it's just been ridiculous for him to start his career like the way that it has. So I think he's been excellent, all things considered. I would agree with Phil. I think sometimes the man management maybe leaves a bit to be desired. I'm still confused to this day about the Mesut Ozil situation. I don't think we'll ever actually know until someone writes their autobiography in 20 years or something. But Guendouzi, kind of a weird one. Torreira. Saliba, yeah, Saliba's an interesting one for sure. All these different things. I it's hard to see or tell is that on the player or the manager, but the manager's the common denominator. So that might be the only thing where I think that's one of those things he needs to learn on the job. I think tactics and the footballing side of his job is not at issue, but definitely the man management, and the interpersonal stuff. I think probably he'll just have to learn that with time.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think, like you said, the man management will come as he manages more players and he sees what worked and what didn't work.
Right.
He may be sitting there writing notes on himself, like the way that I handled things with Saliba or Guendouzi was not right. We don't really know, but the tactical side of the coaching is what he has really going for him, which is what I really like. But let's pivot a little bit just to Liverpool. Season hasn't went as expected. I don't think.
No.
But I would say that the main thing for Liverpool, in my eyes, is the injuries, because that's all I can really see. I think when you have so many injuries in a starting 11 or a certain group of players, 11 to 15 players that are really strong and important for the side, and they're all in and out of the squad at different times. You have a huge injury to Virgil van Dijk very early in the season. You can't expect a team to be the same after that. And even though they may physically be able to do it, mentally, I think that takes a lot out of you. How has it been as a Liverpool fan, Phil, like winning the league, going through, them going through COVID, those times, and coming back, not looking great after, but knowing that you're going to win the league anyway, and then starting out the season the way that you did? How does it feel so far for you guys?
It's been brutal. I'm not gonna lie. The reason that it's been tough, I think, first and foremost, is that Liverpool started this season actually on like title winning form, and it felt like a repeat was on the cards actually. And I think that's what's made it tougher, because if we started the season, it's like title hangover, like rebuild, go back next year, whatever. But it was like, no, we've just reloaded. We're gonna fight. Jurgen Klopp saying we're not gonna try to defend the title. We're gonna attack the title, like that sort of stuff, like that rhetoric at the beginning of the season, and then backing it up with some really good form early on, some great results early on in the season. But the Everton game itself, where Virgil van Dijk was injured, actually served as a pretty good demonstration of this Liverpool season, I think, in that the beginning part of that game with the normal front three, a midfield three of Henderson, Wijnaldum, and Thiago, Henderson, Fabinho, and Thiago, excuse me, and a back four of Van Dijk, Gomez, Alexander-Arnold, and Robertson. I think in the early stages of that game, they played Everton completely off the park, and there was absolutely no shot. Like, Everton were just, chasing shadows for most of that opening 20 minutes. Could have been multiple goals up, all this stuff. The Van Dijk injury occurs, and, substitutions have to be made. We have to adjust, and the end result was a draw. And despite, playing some really good football up front, not getting the 3 points in a game like that, it just kind of is demonstrative of how this season has gone, which is they've done okay, and in a lot of games they've played decent football, and they've strung things together, created chances, but but these injuries that have required, you know, the likes of Henderson and Fabinho to drop into central defense, because, you know, shortly after Van Dijk was injured, Joe Gomez was also injured long-term, as was Joel Matip. So it's like the whole season has just been, you know, trying to patch these holes. And the side that Klopp's built, I always make the analogy that it works like a Swiss watch. Like, it's fine, and when it works, it's absolutely amazing. But the second you change out a piece and just try to put someone else, you know, put a gear in a different spot or something like that, it stops working the way that it used to. And it might still tick, but not, you know, as cleanly or not as well. So I think that's essentially how the season has gone. And at this point, most Liverpool fans are thinking, hopefully they can fight their way back into the top four, but, you know, the title is long gone at this point. If anything, it's, you know, kind of write this season off and that they can go for it next year. And, you know, if we're gonna miss Champions League, also miss the Europa League and just go all in on the Prem. I think that's what most Liverpool fans would probably prefer.
Yeah, that's pretty much a good summary, you know. But from your perspective, from the outside looking in, it's like, whoa, you know, what's going on there? But
Sure.
you can all see that it's definitely the injuries and the inconsistencies. And one thing that I know about Klopp for sure from his time at Dortmund is he likes a small squad. He likes to play the same 11 day in and day out, and it's effective. But if you don't have like for like or the same level, which is really difficult to do in a self-sustaining model as well, like Liverpool and Arsenal have self-sustaining models. So when you don't have the same type of financial pull that somebody like a Manchester City has, you know, it's really, really difficult, you know, to bring in like for like in the same level. So I sympathize with that. But let's talk a little bit about, you know, one of the highlights of your season, which to me has been Diego Jota. You know, he was out for a long time with an injury, but before that, in excellent form. And now that he's come back, he seems like he's picked up right where he left off. How good has he been for you guys, you know, this season?
Yeah, Jota's been a complete breath of fresh air for this side. I think the front three were getting to a point of just staleness and running out of ideas. A lot of teams know how to game plan for that front three. They understand how Salah and Mane and Firmino interchange and work. So when you insert a new variable and give something for else, you know, something else for defenses to think about, I think it's a huge win. And Jota was exactly the right player at exactly the right time in exactly the right system to succeed. And yeah, he's been brilliant and his confidence is sky high. So great combination for an attacker. And yeah, I really like his prospects moving forward, and I'd like to even see him integrated hopefully more into maybe a different setup where he can play with all of the front three as well, just to give more for people to worry about, because him coming in for either Mane or Firmino or something, I think we're kind of still presenting the same shape to defenses, whereas, you know, Jota, in addition to that front three, it's like, okay, well, now how are they setting up? Is it a 4-2-3-1? Like, what are they doing? So anyways, yeah, I love Diogo, and I think he's a great fit for this side, and I'm excited to see what he can do in a season where, you know, we're also not playing patchwork with the midfield and defense.
Yeah, that was a really good, smart pickup for you guys. And it happened like out of nowhere. Like it was like really weird. It was like the news started to come out, and then all of a sudden, bang, he was a Liverpool player. You know, it was very good business. I like that from you guys. I really do. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Klopp, though. You know, I think we have this tendency as fans to be really reactionary, and you can't blame fans because it's not really our job to think critically or be balanced. Fandom is very intense and it lives on the edges, one side or the other. But as
Sure.
much as Klopp has done for Liverpool, I'm very shocked to see that some Liverpool fans have felt like Klopp should go, or that he doesn't have a future or he can't rebuild the squad. You know, um, how do you kind of feel about it, Phil? Like, do you think it's just reactionary and too soon?
Yeah, I think it's a really vocal minority of fans that would even suggest Klopp out. I mean, if you had lived through the 10 years of Roy Hodgson, and even Brendan Rodgers to an extent, not to say Brendan Rodgers hasn't turned into a quality Premier League manager, but the instability and just the day-to-day uncertainty around like what was happening at the club during those 10 years was so crazy compared to just the relative calmness with which Klopp has won a Champions League, won a Premier League, won a Club World Cup as well, and brought Liverpool back into like the upper echelon of teams in the world. That was not a given. That was not like it was not taken for granted that Klopp could pull that off. The fact that he's brought the first Premier League trophy and the first league title in 30 years to Liverpool, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm sure the sentiment would be similar within the city limits of Liverpool as well. As far as I'm concerned, he can set the terms of when and where he departs Liverpool. I don't really care how, I think within reason, like obviously if things spiral completely, then there may be some recourse for the club for sure. But this sort of season, he should not be judged like against how this season has gone and all of the circumstances surrounding, with COVID, the injuries, the player fatigue, the personal tragedies with Klopp losing his mother, Alisson, losing his father during the pandemic as well, and not being allowed to travel for those for the funerals and all of that. I mean, there's no way that he should be judged against what's gone on this season. And I think, given the chance and given, fans returning and maybe some level of normalcy being achieved, I think you'll see, this Klopp side built right back up to where he's gotten it previously. So yeah, his contract runs through 2024, I believe, and it would be the longest tenure he's had at any club. And for me personally, I hope he sees it out. And it's basically just a transition to the next coach, not even a hiring or firing situation, just a handing off of the reins. And I think that's the best case scenario for Liverpool.
Even though a lot of Arsenal fans, I think, feel like our situation at the moment or the rebuild that we are trying to, the rebuild that we are in is similar to the one that you guys went through. I think it's different, obviously, because that was years ago. The league is completely different now. There's a lot more competition, and Klopp is a world-class manager, and Arteta is a novice. But do you have any advice for Arsenal fans on how to survive a rebuild when the team is up and down, inconsistencies, losing to teams that you're probably not supposed to, missing out on maybe some benchmarks that you expected to reach? Any advice for us moving forward?
Well, as tough and simple, I guess, at the same time as it sounds, hang in there. A club like Arsenal is, I mean, at the end of the day, Arsenal is a massive club. Like, and there's really no denying that the success that they've had. Some of the most famous teams, especially in the Premier League era, come from Arsenal. Some just brilliant players as well. And the potential within that club is huge, especially given, ever since I know moving to the Emirates is like a touchy subject for some like old school Arsenal fans, but the amount of fans that Arsenal obviously have worldwide and the amount that they generate just in terms of revenue, you know, within the club, and the amount of support that they have. I think it's just, you know, you don't keep a team like that down as long as the right decisions get made. And I think that's been the biggest question mark around Arsenal is like, is ownership making the right decisions? And it seems like they've finally gotten, you know, a pretty decent appointment right, and they seem to be giving him some support. Especially the Odegaard signing is like just really sticks out as like a no-brainer and something they've done quite well. So, anyways, I would just say that the biggest question mark is, will Arsenal's ownership let them, you know, sustain the success?
Well, you heard it there from a Liverpool fan, you guys. Just hang in there. Calm down. It's going to be all right. So let's talk a little bit about the game. You know, this is a game that I don't really hold with a lot of I don't want to say I don't care, but I'm not in live or die mode with this, because I think we've done enough damage in our season to look at this as it's kind of like a nothing game for us. I think the Europa League is where we need to focus, but I also think that what we've done in the league so far is just put us in a position where we can't really move from kind of where we are. I don't think we're going to be able to qualify for Europe through the league, not because we're so far off, but if you look at the teams above us, they have games in hand. And whenever we have an opportunity, like we did against West Ham, like we did against Wolves, like we did against Burnley, to get points in games that we really should, we didn't, you know. But Mika, for you, is this an important game? And what are you looking for in this game from Arteta in the team, even if it's not about the result? Like, what are you looking for?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to disagree with you in terms of how our place in the table never seems to move, whether, you know, partly because of what's happening around us and also because we shoot ourselves in the foot, like you said, with West Ham, Burnley, and the like. So, yeah, the importance of this game, I think it's important for confidence, but obviously not important for actual league position. What I'm looking for out of this game is to be brave. Let's play. Let's attack. You know, this is the time to play Liverpool. No offense, Phil, but you know, let's take advantage of maybe some of the novices in that back line, or people still learning what it's like to play English football. I want to see a more progressive formation, more progressive tactics. I think the last couple times we've played Liverpool, we've had three at the back and kind of wanted to shield the back line with, you know, two DMs and the wing backs. So I hope we stick with our, you know, 4-2-3-1. I hope Odegaard is given the keys as he's been given these past couple games, and we just put pace around him. I want to see Oba on the left, Pepe on the right, Laka up top, grafting. I mean, I think that's if, you know, if we're gonna get a result out of this, we just have to be brave. I don't want to, you know, go to Liverpool and just play for a draw or try not to get battered. I mean, it as you say, in the table in the league, it really doesn't matter, does it? So let's go for it.
Well, you've mentioned Odegaard, you know, probably in the last three podcasts that I've done, that's all I've really talked about is him. But from your perspective, you know, how impressed are you with Odegaard? Are you impressed with him? You know, I don't really know, but what, just tell me what you think about this boy. I mean, you gotta love him the way I do. You got to make it, give it to me. Come on, you have to.
Of course, Odegaard is a revelation. I mean, I watched him last season quite extensively with Real Sociedad, so I mean, I knew what this player was about. He's a modern 10 in the sense that he can do all the things that you expect a creative player to do with that work rate, because that's what the game is about nowadays. It's 2021 and everyone needs to put in a shift defensively, and he's a pressing monster. I mean, on top of playing these ridiculous no-look passes or reverse balls or breaking the lines. So an incredible player, an incredible talent, one that I hope we can maybe negotiate for. I mean, I think a lot of that depends on the player himself, and you know, whether Zinedine Zidane sees him in his plans for next season with Real Madrid. Real have not played with a out-and-out 10 since, I would argue, Mesut Ozil. So, I mean, James Rodriguez didn't last long there, so maybe Odegaard is is maybe going to suffer that same fate, but to our benefit. So we'll see with that. But yeah, he's fantastic, and just again everything you want in a modern playmaker, I would say.
I think what we also see from Odegaard is his leadership. You know, a lot of fans have, you know, compared him to, the obvious comparison is Mesut Ozil. And I think that he does have some of the characteristics of Ozil, and he likes to float off into the right hand side and the right half space. You know, he's very good technically. He has the vision, and he's the type of player that puts all the information on the pass, so you only have one thing to do. You know, Clive from Arsenal Vision talks about that a lot. Like, a really good playmaker will make it so clear what you need to do with this ball based on how they put it, they give it to you. You know, and that's kind of how he is. All the information is on that ball. But what I actually see from him is more of a Cesc type of. I think he's more of a Cesc to me, not just in playing style, but in the leadership. When Cesc played for Arsenal, the quality was not that of what he was probably used to from the Invincibles, and he carried that team on his back a lot. He had leadership qualities that Mesut Ozil didn't have. Odegaard is the captain of Norway now, you know, and he has that. If you're not going to do it, I'm going to do it. And I think in a team that lacks leadership, lacks responsibility, accountability, those types of things, lacks backbone, it's important to bring those players in, even in flair positions. You know, Mesut Ozil was looked at as a luxury player, you know, and a lot of times the offensive players, you know, the pretty passers, the ones that are easy on the eye are looked at as the cherry on top. But I think he has more to offer for a team like us than just the cherry on top, you know, and I think he's going to be really important for us moving forward. Without him, I'm not sure if we could go far enough in the Europa League. I think he's that important, you know. But Mika, what are our chances of winning the Europa League for you?
You know, I don't think there's any reason why we can't win the Europa League. I think if we do falter in this competition, it will probably be due to some lack of concentration, as we've seen over some of these past couple games, making it hard for ourselves against sides that I am confident in saying we are better than. But to be fair, I think also in knockout competitions, there is a lot of luck involved. Whether that luck is in officiating, in the draw itself, the circumstances that we find ourselves in. I mean, playing, you know, in Greece was weird, like for a home game. I mean, just all the travel that we're having to do, the fixture pile up. So, you know, it's a season unlike any we've ever seen before. So I think a lot of it is in our hands, but maybe some of it isn't as well. So I just know we're going to have to get through Nayamir's Villarreal. I feel it in my bones. So, but
Good evening.
not to cast off Slavia Prague just yet, but that's happening. Good evening. Yeah.
It's definitely
evening,
happening.
We'll see.
Yeah, it'll either be a good evening or bad evening. You know, we do not know. Phil, how important is this game for Liverpool? You know, you said before that you want, like, some fans feel like you need to get into the top four. You can still, you know, qualify through the league. But is this an important game? Are you really looking, you know, have an eye on the Champions League fixture that's coming up for you guys?
I think at this point, Liverpool's fans' focus is on the Champions League. But there is still a chance. We're 5 points off of Chelsea in fourth. So basically at this point, I think each game becomes, if they can shift their mentality to almost think about this in the same way they thought about the title, where every single game was a must win, every single game, they chased every single point that was out there, they can still qualify. And I think the teams above them have shown, you know, that there are absolutely like soft spots in these teams, and they have the ability to go on a bad run just like Liverpool did. So I think the squad will see this as hugely important. I think most Liverpool fans now are watching games with a very guarded expectation and not trying to get their hopes up too much, because obviously there's been some real crazy results and some really heartbreaking games this year. So I think this is big in terms of Liverpool maintaining some form of momentum, especially off the back of a good win in the Champions League knockout stages against Leipzig. So Yeah, I'm hesitant to say that it's, you know, a massive must win or something like that, but I think Liverpool fans are seeing this as pretty important. And I know for me personally and Mika too, like in El Paso, a fun fact is that El Paso and Liverpool's or El Paso's Liverpool and Arsenal fan groups used to share the same bar. And so this is a bit of a derby in El Paso because we're good friends for sure. But during this match, things always got heated at the bar, and so I have like a certain affinity for this game just because so many of my friends, you know, between the Liverpool and Arsenal side have just weird memories of this fixture.
They're usually high scoring, you know, fixtures in the past, you know, so I expect goals in this game. But let's talk a little bit about key players. You know, Mika, for you, can you give me a couple players that we need to either look out for on Liverpool or look at them as a weakness and try to exploit on our end?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's hard not to not look past Diogo Jota. Obviously he was lights out for Portugal in the international break. Just looking like his old self prior to the injury. So if he starts at the weekend, he's one that we need to be keeping an eye on because he's very dangerous. I think he offers something, you know, in other areas of the pitch, besides just the final third that I don't think Salah or Mane quite do. So he could be an issue for us everywhere, and I think that's something that we'll have to be looking out for. I don't know about weaknesses. I mean, obviously the obvious thing is looking at that back line and seeing who starts today. Like, are we doing our 54th our 54th pairing or whatever? But yeah, I
it's
mean,
like 21.
Wow.
Sorry, my bad. Yeah, so we'll see who starts. I couldn't even tell you, to be honest. I mean, the injuries are so numerous that I mean, what do you think, Phil? Who's starting? I mean,
Yeah.
Kabak and someone?
Kabak and new
Williams
cult
or-
hero Nat Phillips.
Phillips.
He's been the primary who, you know, spent last season on loan at Stuttgart in their Zweite Bundesliga, like before they got promoted. So yeah. Anyways, I will say Nat Phillips, credit to him. He's stuck it out. He's like persevered in the side. He's gotten in there, but he does win a lot of headers. So I would not it's good that Arsenal has pivoted, from your guys' perspective, has pivoted away from the crosses because Nat Phillips will head it away. I promise you that.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Mika, 110%. Diogo Jota is somebody that I'm like, why are you back now, buddy? Why are you back right now? You know,
Yeah,
it's
for real.
like so annoying. But yeah, and that center back pairing for sure. I think I would fancy, you know, Aubameyang and maybe even a Pepe running at that back line, running in behind that back line. I think they've done better, but you know, it's not Van Dijk and Gomez. So I don't think we should respect them as that, you know, take advantage of whatever we can. Phil, for you, are there any players on the Arsenal team that you feel like that backline need to look out for? You know, who would you not want to see start for Arsenal? You know, we do have some good attacking players now.
Yeah. I mean, you guys talked about Martin Odegaard, and I think he's obviously emerged as a key player for this Arsenal side. I do back, I would say, if we're able to get Fabinho into midfield, that could really nullify like the impact of Odegaard, just because we could put a 6 on a 10, you know, kind of in a classic sort of matchup. If that's not the case, Odegaard will have a little bit of a run of the middle of the park. So I think it's going to be, the onus is going to be on Liverpool to try to clog things up and kind of gum up the works for Arsenal, because if he's able to feed, you know, even in the like strange circumstances that Aubameyang and Lacazette kind of find themselves in, they will find themselves in goal scoring, positions. And I absolutely hate facing Alexander Lacazette because every time he faces
Liverpool, goal against Liverpool, doesn't he?
He loves scoring against Liverpool, and I swear to God, it's a personal attack on me because I advocated for Liverpool to sign him for years, and the receipts are out there. People can back this up. I wanted Lacazette at Liverpool for a long time, and I feel attacked every time that he scores against us.
He's in good form as well.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. He scores the equalizer against West Ham as well, and I think being all things being equal, he probably should have gotten credit for the first goal also.
I don't know how they took that away. It was so, I was like, come on now.
But yeah, of course he's hit form. I mean, similar to the Jota return, right? Just before the international break, and Jota scoring against his former team Wolves, right before the international break, and now scoring for Portugal. I think similarly about Lacazette, where I just hate the idea of a savvy attacker like him, despite the fact that he's been kind of like up and down in terms of opinion of Arsenal fans. When the cards are down and he's making a good run or kind of being instinctive in the box, it just scares the absolute shit out of me. So, yeah, I think that's who I look out for kind of instinctively. But the one player that I will tell you, there's a lot of like, at least on the American side of the Liverpool fandom, there's a lot of love for, despite the fact he doesn't play for the club, is Bukayo Saka. And I know you guys love Saka as well. But there was a period of time where Saka was like maybe linked with like a move and all this stuff
before he signed his contract.
Yeah. And so anyways, like there is a little bit of an affinity in the Liverpool fandom. So I know there will be discussions about Saka as well, especially if he starts in this one. But yeah, all over. It all kind of concerns me. I just hope that we have the right personnel in the right spots to deal with it. Even if the center back pairing is obviously not going to be the strongest, but hopefully it's serviceable in defending those threats.
Yeah, I think the unfortunate part is that I believe that Bukayo Saka, his hamstring might be an issue. He may not be able to start, as well as Smith Rowe. He didn't play in their game against, I believe it was Croatia, for the under-21. So those are two big blows for us. Two of our best players out.
I saw it kicked off with Curtis Jones.
I saw that too. He was actually having a really decent game, for the under-21s. And then after the game, I guess the Croatia players were, mouthing off, and Curtis Jones, went after them. I thought that was pretty cool. I like that.
I worry a little bit about what that incident actually was about, because I've never seen Curtis Jones react like that. So I am a little concerned about like the potential fallout from that, because we've obviously seen a lot of, recently we've seen these incidents in Eastern Europe. So going to Croatia, or, facing Croatia in this World Cup qualifier, and for it to kick off like it did. Yeah, I'm just concerned about the direction. But Curtis Jones scores a goal too, and he's been in really good form for Liverpool. So I think, when I'm thinking about like Liverpool players to watch, I definitely put Curtis Jones up there, because he's probably been our best like attack-minded midfielder this season.
He's so underrated. I think it's so weird how we only hear about Saka and Foden and Mount. He's almost like forgotten in a way, but yeah, so let's do some score predictions. I still think it's going to be really close. I think it's going to be 2-2 tie, but let's just quickly go around and say what our score predictions are. Mika, what do you think?
I think I'm being a little bit hopeful with this one, but I'm going to go 3-1 Arsenal. I don't know. I kind of back the boys right now. I think we showed something at West Ham, although we got off to a horrific start. that kind of response, you don't see that from late stage Arsene Wenger or even Unai Emery's Arsenal. And so I think that'll maybe spur us on a little bit, even though it wasn't the result that we wanted, just to know that we can score 3 goals in a match and play a good side, because West Ham are apparently a Champions League side now, so potentially.
David Moyes,
as we like to call him.
I love it.
Football. So I'm going through on Arsenal. I'm being hopeful. I'm backing us.
Phil, what do you think?
This game's at the Emirates, right? Like, I'm not wrong in seeing that.
Yeah.
I thought it was
no. Liverpool are winning 100%. You guys will win at Anfield. That's just the way of things until fans return. But no, I think I'll just take the exact opposite of Mika's prediction and go 3-1 Liverpool. But it's only because the game is away from home. Like, there's some kind of like there's something
you guys have some
floating
voodoo
over
at home.
There's something floating over Anfield, and but away from home. Now, I would go even further if this game was being played in Budapest, because Liverpool are absolutely unstoppable in Hungary.
New Anfield.
Yeah, the Puskás Arena is our new home in the Champions League, at least. So, but anyways, no, I'll go 3-1, and I think, I think the only reason I think that is because if Arsenal do play more attacking and try to get on the front foot, that'll actually like help Liverpool in the sense that they've had to be that team that has the ball and tries to break the opposition down. So if Arsenal do try to come out and play, which would be awesome, there will be a little bit of opportunity on the break, where Liverpool have mostly struggled against teams who have been in that low block and tried to hit them on the counter. It's been mostly successful. So I'm thinking if Arsenal come out and play, which I think they should, I just think that Liverpool will thrive in that sort of like open environment.
Well, there you have it. I think we're going to tie. Mika thinks that we're going to win, and Phil thinks that Liverpool is going to win. So, hey, it could go any way, but you guys, this has been an awesome match preview. Wanted to do something different than your usual, combined 11 and things like that. And I think, having the pleasure of speaking to an American Liverpool fan and another American Arsenal fan has been amazing. So thank you guys so much for being on the show. Let everybody know where they can find you on the internet, what's going on with hardcore football and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So Hardcore Football, you can find at HXC Football on Twitter and on all the podcast platforms. We talk about all the major European leagues, just kind of in general. So if you're looking for something a little bit broader, you can find us there, with a little bit of music stuff sprinkled in, alternative music type stuff. And you can find me at Phil Talks Footy, and Mika hides her online personas. So.
Not on purpose. I just don't. I don't really like pay attention to my personal that much. I'm always on Hardcore Football bantering. But yeah, I'm at Shock Apologist, or talk to me on at HXC Football. I'm perfectly reachable there too. So
you guys check out their podcast. I believe it's on Apple and Google and Spotify and all those the audio platforms. So give them a subscribe. Follow them on Twitter and all that good stuff. You guys can follow me on Twitter at It's Just Eno as usual. And I'm so bad at these outro parts because I never know what's coming up next. I'm
They're
never
the
prepared,
worst.
So we're just going to leave it there, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys. Whoa.